Kael had worked with a human for 8 months, and she still did not understand him. She stood near the curved glass of the research outpost, watching transport vessels rise and fall against the pale orange sky of Drevo Station. Behind her, she could feel his presence without turning. Rhenn was always there, always watching, always silent. The Lyrani people were gifted with the ability to perceive energy fields. They could feel intentions like pressure in the air. They could trace emotional patterns if they chose to, though their customs strictly forbade it without consent. Kael had honored these customs her entire life. She was proud of her discipline. But Rhenn made her curious in ways that felt deeply uncomfortable. Most beings were easy to perceive. Their energy floated around them like ripples in still water. Calm, restless, bitter, afraid. But Rhenn was different. His field felt like a sealed chamber, not empty but contained, still in a way that seemed unnatural. She turned to look at him. He stood near the corridor entrance of the research hall, arms crossed loosely at his chest. He wore the plain dark jacket of a transit escort. Nothing special, nothing impressive. His face carried no expression. His pale eyes moved steadily across the room, counting columns, measuring sight lines, noting exits. Humans were newcomers to the Alliance. They had only made contact with other civilizations 35 years ago. Most species considered them underdeveloped. They had no energy perception like the Lyrani, no regenerative plating like the Muir, no centuries of recorded science like the Avari. They were fragile, brief-lived, and unremarkable. So, why had the Central Alliance assigned one to escort the Lyrani research team? Kael had asked this question repeatedly. The answer was always the same. Humans were affordable. Humans were replaceable. Humans asked for nothing extra. She moved toward him, her deep green uniform catching the amber light. Her people were striking by most standards, tall and angled with skin the color of polished stone, faintly luminous near the temple. Their eyes shifted color with emotion, wide and expressive, capable of perceiving spectrums invisible to others. Next to her, Rhenn looked plain, unremarkable, easily forgotten. "You have been standing in that same spot for 6 hours," she said. He did not look at her. His eyes continued their slow sweep. "Yes. Are you not exhausted?" "I am fine." Kael waited for more. Nothing came. This was how their exchanges always ended. She would speak. He would answer with the minimum possible words. She would feel a strange frustration rise in her chest. He would continue being a wall. "The gathering tonight will be crowded," she said. "Many factions will attend. The Muir representative will be there." At the mention of the Muir, something shifted in Rhenn. It was small, almost invisible, but Kael was trained to notice such things. His shoulders adjusted slightly. The line of his jaw tightened for less than a second. His eyes stopped moving and fixed on a point in the middle distance. "I am aware," he said. The Muir were a conquest-driven species, massive, durable, and relentless. Their territories had been spreading for generations, absorbing weaker civilizations through pressure and negotiation that was really just a slower form of force. They had made several formal proposals to the Lyrani. Partnership, they called it. Kael understood the truth. The Muir wanted Lyrani energy readers for their expansion operations. They wanted to use her people as instruments of control. The Lyrani had declined every proposal. The Muir had not responded kindly. "Do you expect trouble?" Kael asked. "I always expect trouble." She almost smiled at that. Almost. That must make for an exhausting existence. For the first time, Rhenn looked at her. His eyes met hers for just a moment. Something passed through them, something deep and unreadable. Then he looked away. "I managed," he said. The gathering that night was exactly as Kael had anticipated. The main hall of Drevo Station was filled with beings from across the known territories, textures and shapes and scales that would overwhelm any newcomer. But Kael had attended hundreds of such events. She moved through the room with quiet confidence, speaking the correct phrases, offering the correct gestures, playing the endless performance of alliance diplomacy. Through all of it, she remained aware of Rhenn. He did not stand near her. That would have been inappropriate for a transit escort. Instead, he placed himself at the far edge of the room where everything was visible. She noticed that he always chose positions near exits. She noticed that his gaze followed certain individuals more than others. She noticed that whenever she relocated, he adjusted too, maintaining his line of observation without being obvious about it. It was strange. She was not the only Lyrani present. There were 4 others, including Director Nail, who held far more authority than a field researcher like herself. Yet Rhenn seemed specifically focused on it. The Muir representative approached near the midpoint of the evening. His name was Groff, and he was enormous, even by Muir standards. His gray-green hide was marked with territorial patterns. His amber eyes regarded her with an interest that made the air feel heavy. "Researcher Kael," he said, his voice like gravel shifting. "Representative Groff." She inclined her head slightly. "I hope the gathering has been worthwhile." "It would be more worthwhile with a better conversation." He stepped forward. Too close. The Muir had no concept of appropriate distance, or perhaps simply no interest in it. The Lyrani are such fascinating people, so perceptive, so capable. Kael held her expression steady. "We prefer the term precise." "Of course." Groff smiled, revealing flat, heavy teeth. "Tell me, researcher, has your team reconsidered our collaborative research proposal? A joint field study. Your people would gain significant resources. The team has reviewed the proposal. We have concerns about the conditions. Conditions can be renegotiated." Groff leaned closer, his presence overwhelming. "Everything can be arranged. Everything carries a value, even individual." Before Kael could respond, a presence appeared at her side. Rhenn had arrived without sound. He stood at her shoulder, posture neutral, eyes fixed on the Muir representative. "Excuse me," Rhenn said. His voice was calm, measured, completely unhurried. "Director Nail is requesting the researcher. She is needed immediately." For a long moment, Groff stared at the human. Then he let out a short, rough sound that passed for laughter. Humans, always performing functions they were not built for. He looked back at Kael. "We will continue this later. Researcher, think carefully about what I said. Everything carries a value." He moved away, his heavy steps vibrating through the floor. Kael released a breath she had not realized she was holding. She turned to Rhenn. "Director Nail did not request me." "No," Rhenn agreed. "You deceived him." "Yes." She studied his face, searching for an explanation, for some readable reaction. She found nothing. "Why did you intervene?" "He was not threatening me." Rhenn was quiet for a moment. Then, "There are many forms of threat." Before she could press further, he stepped back into the crowd and disappeared. Within seconds, he was at the far wall again, watching, always watching. Kael stood alone in the center of the gathering, surrounded by hundreds of beings, and felt something she had no word for. Not gratitude, not quite, not curiosity alone, either. Something between the two, unnamed and persistent. She looked across the room at the quiet human who had been assigned to escort her research team. For the first time, she wondered if she had been looking at him wrong. For the first time, she wondered what actually moved through his mind behind those still, pale eyes. But she would not read his energy field deliberately. That was forbidden. That was a violation. She did not know that soon she would have no choice. The Drevos Light Convergence was the station's largest annual event. Once every season cycle, beings from across the network gathered in the central atrium to mark the alignment of 3 nearby star systems. Paper lanterns of every material drifted from the upper levels. Sound performances echoed between the walls. The scent of hundreds of different cuisines mixed together in complex, layered ways. Kael walked through the crowd with 2 other members of her team. Station security had confirmed the event was controlled. Extra personnel had been stationed. Entry points were monitored. Nothing could go wrong. Rhenn walked 12 steps behind her. She did not need to turn to know he was there. She felt his presence like a constant in an equation. The atrium was genuinely beautiful. Kael had to acknowledge it. Woven light formations hung from every level. Performers moved on suspended platforms. The children of many species ran between adults, their differences erased entirely by the noise and joy and motion of the moment. For a small window of time, Kael almost forgot about proposals and representatives and the Muir. She stopped at a vendor offering mineral sculptures from her home settlement. She bought one, holding it to the light to watch it scatter the glow into fragments. For a small moment, she was simply a researcher who had found something beautiful. Then the station cracked open. The first blast came from her left. A wave of force and heat hit her body and threw her sideways through the air. She heard screaming erupt all around. She heard structures collapsing. She felt herself rotating without control. Nothing to hold on to. She struck the ground hard. Pain ran through her body in every direction. Her vision went white, then fractured, then dim. She tried to rise. Her body refused. She tried to call out. Her voice produced nothing. Smoke poured through the atrium. People ran without direction. More detonations rang in the distance. Emergency alarms tore through every speaker. Kael lay on the floor of the atrium, watching the chaos through eyes she could barely keep open. This is where I end, she thought. Alone on the floor of a station I barely knew, far from everything familiar. Then a body covered her. Rhenn arrived from nothing, from nowhere, and threw himself across her, blocking the debris with his own body. His arms came around her head, protecting her skull from what fell. His chest pressed against her spine, his heart beat loud and fast. Another detonation. Closer. Kael felt its heat even through Rhenn's body between her and it. She heard the sound that escaped him when something struck his back. He did not move. He did not release her. And in that moment of absolute terror, of contact, of complete collapse of focus, Kael's perceptual barriers broke. She had not intended to read his field. She had spent her entire life developing the discipline to keep her perception contained. But the explosion had destroyed her concentration. The physical contact had created a direct channel. The extreme emotional pressure had dismantled every layer she had constructed over years. She fell into his energy field the way one falls into water in the dark. Sudden, total, disorienting. What she expected to find was noise, fear, pain, reactive instinct, the chaotic flooding of a mind under threat. That was what most fields felt like in moments like this, a storm of competing signals and urgent, unordered thought. What she found instead was something that stopped her entirely. Rhenn's field was ordered, not silent, not cold, organized, in a way she had never encountered before. Every signal had a position. Every response had a purpose. It was like entering a structure where nothing was placed by accident. She felt his pain. The debris had opened his back in multiple places. Something in his side might be fractured, but the pain was set to one side. Acknowledged, processed, not permitted to interfere with function. She felt his calculations. Ongoing attack. Multiple detonations, coordinated pattern. Exit assessment, 3 possibilities. Northern access, blocked. Eastern corridor, unconfirmed. Southern passage, viable. Probability of extraction, within acceptable parameters. Her extraction, not his extraction, not the team. Her specifically. Kael moved deeper into his field without meaning to. The connection was beyond her ability to stop. She found memories. She found Rhenn, 3 weeks after being assigned to her team, in his quarters during rest hours, reviewing a detailed report on Lyrani perceptual biology, learning the conditions that disrupted their energy reading, learning what environmental factors caused Lyrani discomfort, learning what signs indicated a Lyrani researcher in distress, signs that would be invisible to any human who had not specifically studied them. She found him 5 months ago, in a dim corridor, exchanging a data transfer with a figure she did not recognize. In return, he received a name, a Muir operative who had taken a position on the research support staff to monitor her movements. 3 days later, that operative was listed as having experienced a fatal equipment malfunction. She found him 4 months ago intercepting a shipment bound for her research team. Supply containers coated on the interior with a compound that degraded slowly into a respiratory toxin. Rhenn had opened one with bare hands to confirm the presence of the compound. He had spent 5 days in the medical unit telling everyone he had developed a reaction to the station's ventilation system. She found him 2 months ago, standing in the corridor outside her quarters in the hours before dawn, not stationed at the team's general post, but specifically outside her door, every night for hours while the rest of the station slept. And beneath every memory, beneath every calculation, she felt the thought that ran through all of it like a current through deep water. Keep her safe. She does not need to carry this. She does not need to be afraid. Let her do her work. Let her find what she came here to find. Just keep her safe. Kael pulled back. The connection ended. The world returned. Sound, smell, pain. The present moment crashing back in. Rhenn was lifting her now, carrying her through the smoke and the running crowds. His face was tight with controlled pain, but his arms were entirely steady. He moved through the chaos the way a current moves through a landscape, finding the path that others cannot see. Are you injured? His voice was unchanged, level, contained, as though he had not just shielded her from a detonation with his own body. Kael could not answer. She looked at his face and saw it for the first time, genuinely saw it. This plain, unremarkable human who had been fighting a hidden war to keep her alive, who had been poisoned for her, who had ended lives for her, who had surrendered his sleep for her, who had never said a single word about any of it. Kael, his voice shifted, sharper, worried. Are you injured? Can you hear me? She found her voice. I am not hurt. Good. He carried her toward the southern passage, exactly as his field had calculated. We need to move you to a secured location. The team quarters have better shielding. Can you walk? I think so. He lowered her carefully, keeping one hand on her arm until she was stable. His back was bleeding. She could see it now, dark staining spreading across his jacket. But he did not mention it, did not look at it. Stay near me, he said. Move when I move. Stop when I stop. Do you understand? She nodded. They moved through the damaged station, stepping over fragments and past frightened civilians. Emergency teams were beginning to arrive. The fires were being managed. The chaos was slowly becoming order. When they reached her quarters, Rhenn checked every corner before she was permitted to enter. Then he took his position outside her door, exactly as always, as though nothing had changed in the past hour, as though he had not almost died for her. Kael stood inside her room and looked at the closed door between them. She knew things now that she was never meant to know. She had entered his field without permission. She had seen his choices, his sacrifices, his quiet and total devotion. She had believed he was cold. She had believed he was empty. She had believed he was simply another unremarkable human performing a contracted function. She had been entirely wrong. Kael sat on the edge of her bunk and pressed her palms against her face. Outside, Rhenn stood at his post, bleeding from wounds he would not report, watching for threats he would never explain. And for the first time in 8 months, Kael understood that she had never seen him at all. 3 days passed. The station repaired itself. The damaged atrium was rebuilt. The dead were honored briefly. Then life continued the way it always did. But Kael could not continue. She moved through her responsibilities like someone performing a version of herself. She reviewed data. She attended briefings. She said the correct things and held the correct expressions. But internally, she was consumed by questions she could not bring herself to ask. She had violated Rhenn's field. She had seen things she was never meant to see. To tell him would be to confess her violation. Among the Lyrani, reading a field without permission was considered one of the most serious breaches a person could commit. It was a fundamental intrusion, not just an invasion of privacy, but of selfhood. So she stayed silent, and she watched. She watched Rhenn differently now. Before, she had looked at him and registered nothing beyond his function. Now she looked and could not stop seeing everything. She noticed how he assessed the meals delivered to the team. A brief inspection of temperature and seal and origin markings, performed quickly and without drama each time. She noticed the marks on his hand. Fine, curved lines she had never considered before. She recognized the pattern now. Mirror restraint tools left marks exactly like that. How many times had he been taken and escaped without telling anyone? She noticed the brief exchanges he made with the station's maintenance workers, supply handlers, corridor monitors, nods and short words that carried more than their surface suggested. He had built a network of contacts throughout Drivo's station, all quietly watching for threats directed at her. She noticed his exhaustion, present in the steadiness with which he leaned against walls when he thought the corridor was empty, in the faint dimness behind his eyes that careful observation revealed. He could not be sleeping, not when he spent the dark hours outside her door. Each thing she noticed was a wound. On the 4th day, she could no longer endure the weight of what she knew and hadn't said. She needed answers, direct and real, not fragments stolen from his field during a crisis. She went to the station security coordination office. The officer in charge was a woman named Soren, human like Rhenn. But where he was a sealed room, she was a corridor with every door open. Her eyes calculated constantly. Her words arrived precisely. Researcher Kael. Soren looked up from her console. An unusual visit. What do you need? Kael stepped inside and let the door close behind her. I want to know about escort officer Rhenn. Soren's expression did not move. What specifically? Everything. A silence followed. Soren studied her with the focused stillness of someone assessing a structural problem. Then she rose, moved to a storage unit, withdrew a slim document folder, and set it on the surface between them. His official assignment record. Soren said, officially, he is a standard transit escort, clearance level 2, assigned to general security for the Lyrani research team. And unofficially? Soren's expression shifted slightly, not quite a smile. You're asking careful questions, researcher. I need the truth. Another silence, longer. Then Soren sat back down and folded her hands. Unofficially, Rhenn is one of the most effective field operatives I have worked with over a long career. He was specifically assigned to your team based on intelligence we received 8 months ago. Intelligence that was specifically about you. Kael went still. About me? The Muir do not want Lyrani research teams generally. They want specific individuals, field researchers with rare perceptual capabilities. Your range of accurate energy reading makes you exceptionally useful to their expansion operations. They have been planning an acquisition operation targeting you for over 14 months. Range reading, the ability to perceive not surface-level fields, but deep structural patterns, buried intentions, things that the subject themselves had not consciously organized. It was uncommon, even among Lyrani. Kael had always experienced it as a complication rather than an advantage. Why was I not told? She asked. Because awareness would have changed your behavior. You would have carried fear. You would have operated differently. The mirror monitoring, you would have detected the shift and adjusted their approach, or accelerated their timeline. Soren's tone was entirely level. The decision was made that your not knowing was safer, for you and for the operation being my protection. Yes. Kael felt something hard rising in her chest. So I was kept uninformed while others carried that weight for me, while Rhenn carried it. He asked for the assignment. When the threat analysis was presented to him, he requested it specifically. Soren's voice was quieter now. He has been dismantling the Muir's operational network against you for 8 months, largely working alone. He preferred it that way. Why alone? More people creates more points of failure, potential exposure, and because Soren paused, he did not want anyone else absorbing the risk. Kael thought of what she had seen in his field during the explosion. The calculations arranged not around his own survival, but around hers, entirely and exclusively. How many times has he intervened? She asked. Soren opened the folder. 7 confirmed incidents, likely more that were resolved before reaching documented status. She read through the entry. 2 stage elimination operation, 1 abduction attempt, 3 intelligence gathering infiltrations by Muir personnel embedded in station operations, 1 chemical contamination. She looked up. The contamination nearly ended him. You were told he had an environmental reaction, the ventilation system. The truth is that he intercepted supply containers lined with a respiratory compound and physically verified the presence of the toxin. He was in critical medical care for 5 days. The attending physician said the outcome was genuinely uncertain. Kael closed her eyes. She had been reviewing data compilations while he fought to survive. She had been privately noting his silence while he stood between her, and something she had never known was there. Does he understand, she asked quietly, that he may not survive this? Soren did not answer. The silence said everything. Kael opened her eyes. Why does he do it? Humans are not built for this. You are not durable like the Muir, not perceptive like the Lyrani. You carry no inherent advantages. Why do you sacrifice like this for people you have no obligation to? Soren was still for a long time. When she spoke, her voice had changed. Not harder, but more direct, more honest. Humans live short lives, she said. We understand this. We feel time moving in ways that longer-lived species genuinely do not. Perhaps that is why we weigh things differently. We understand that we cannot preserve anything forever, so we focus on what can be done in the present, what can be protected now, what can be given now. She looked at Kael with an expression that was close to compassion. Rhenn does not expect to complete this assignment intact. He accepted that before he accepted the assignment. He determined that your continuation was worth more than his own. Soren paused. That is not a calculation. That is not strategy. That is simply something humans do. Kael stood in the security office, surrounded by documents that described a war she had been living inside without knowing. She thought about the quiet man who had been standing between her and destruction for 8 months. She thought about how she looked past him, through him, had treated his presence as a feature of the environment rather than a choice that had been made, a choice he had made for her. Thank you, she said to Soren, for telling me what is real. What will you do? Kael moved the door. She paused with her hand on the panel. I do not know yet, she said honestly, but I know this. I will not let him carry it alone anymore. She left the office and walked back toward the research wing. Rhenn was there as expected, at his post outside the team's corridor. She looked at him differently now, not as a fixture, not as a contracted function, as a person who had given everything and taken nothing in return. She did not yet know how to make anything right, but she knew she had to begin. The upper observation ring was empty at this hour. Most of the station's population was resting or working. Only the star field was present, burning steadily in the dark beyond the wide, transparent panels. Kael found Rhenn there during his authorized rest period. He stood alone, looking out at the star field with an expression she could not parse. For a moment she stayed in the entrance and simply looked at him. He appeared more tired than she had ever registered. His shoulders carried a weight she could now see clearly. His hands hung open at his sides. He looked like someone who had been holding something too heavy for too long and had forgotten what it felt like not to. She walked toward him. Her footsteps were quiet, but he heard them. He always heard everything. Researcher Kael. He straightened at once. The exhaustion retreated behind its usual cover. Is something wrong? Do you need assistance? No. She stopped beside him and looked out at the same stars. I came to speak with you, simply to talk. Is that acceptable? He was quiet for a moment. Of course. They stood without speaking. The stars were constant and indifferent. Ships moved at distances that made them look like floating dust. Why did you accept this assignment? Kael kept her voice steady, but she felt and become still beside her the moment the words left her. She felt the interior walls rise even without accessing his field. I was placed by the coordination office, he said. Standard escort assignment. That is not what I asked. A longer silence. Soren told me things, Kael continued, about the threat patterns, about the Muir operation, about what you've been doing these past 8 months. She turned to look at him. I know about the contamination. I know about the elimination attempts. I know that you stand outside my door through the night instead of resting. Rhenn did not move. His face remained exactly as it always was. You volunteered for this, she said. You chose to fight alone without telling anyone. You chose to accept the probability of dying for someone who did not even know your given name until a few days ago. Her voice was steady, but she could feel it beginning to lose that steadiness. Why? He did not answer for a long time. The silence extended like a bridge between them. When he spoke, his voice was different, lower, more real. When I was growing up, he said, my grandmother told me something I never forgot. She said that humans are not defined by what we are capable of. We are defined by what we choose to do with what we have. We are not the strongest. We are not the most perceptive. We are not the most advanced. He turned to look at her, and for the first time, she saw what lived in his eyes beneath the cover. Not absence, not control for its own sake. Depth, a deep, still body of feeling held beneath a perfectly managed surface. The rest of the Alliance thinks humans are early stage, he said. Maybe we are. Our vessels are slower. Our instruments are simpler. Our lives are shorter. We carry no perceptual gifts, no biological armor, nothing that marks us as remarkable. He paused. His hands closed slowly at his sides. But where I come from, we are taught that some things matter more than your own continuity. Some people are worth more than your own safety. We do not watch good people be destroyed when we are capable of standing in the way, even when standing in the way means we don't get back up. Kael felt tears form at the edges of her vision. She did not work to stop them. But why me? She said. I am no one significant. I am a field researcher. There are thousands of beings in this network with more influence, more visibility than me. Why would you choose to die for someone like me? Rhenn was quiet for a moment. Then something entirely unexpected happened. He smiled, small, real, and with a quality of sadness behind it. I have watched you for 8 months, he said. I have seen how you treat everyone, the cleaning crews, the supply handlers, the junior staff that everyone else walks past without acknowledgement. I have seen you give your meal to a child at the market because she didn't have enough. I have seen you stay late to help a newer team member who couldn't get their instruments calibrated correctly. He looked back at the stars. You ask why you matter, but you don't see what is visible from where I stand. You don't see how rare it is, how much it matters in a network full of beings who are too focused on their own trajectory to notice anyone else's. He was still for a moment. The Muir want to use your perception as a tool. They want to take what you are and flatten it into a function. I have seen what their acquisition programs produce. I have seen the ones who came through it. His voice became harder. I decided that would not be what happened to you, not while I could still do something about it. And you? Kael said, what do you deserve? He gave no answer, but she already knew. She had been inside his field during the detonation. He had no thought for what he deserved, only for what he could still do, only for what he could still give. You never told me any of this, she said. You let me live in ignorance while you were carrying everything alone. Why? Because you already had enough weight on you. His voice was quiet now, almost careful with her. Living with fear permanently is not living. I know this. I have operated inside it for most of my career. The constant watching, the constant calculation, the knowledge that the moment you stop, something gets through. He looked at her again. I could hold the fear for you. That is something I know how to do. Carry the weight, absorb the threat, maintain the perimeter. You shouldn't have to live inside that. You should be free to do your work, to notice the mineral sculptures at the market and hold them up to the light. Kael stared at him. This ordinary human who had been invisible to her for so long, who had bled for her without acknowledgement, who had accepted the probability of dying so that she would not have to be afraid. "You saw me at the market vendor," she said. "I see everything you do, not intrusively, not because I don't respect your space, but in the way that a person who has decided something is worth protecting pays attention, in the way that you memorize what matters when you have decided it matters." Kael reached out and took his hand. He went completely still. She realized fully that in 8 months she had never touched him deliberately, had never treated him as anything more than a presence in the background of her daily life. "I am sorry," she said. "I am sorry for not seeing you, for looking through you, for treating your presence as ordinary when nothing you have done is ordinary." His hand was warm in hers. The skin was texture from work and from the kind of contact she now understood, marked from encounters she would never have full knowledge of. "You do not need to apologize," he said. "You did nothing that requires it. I did everything that requires it." She held his hand more firmly. "And I want to change it. I want to be beside you instead of in front of you and behind you simultaneously, protected and unaware. I want to contribute to what you have been doing alone." He shook his head. "It is not safe for you to be involved directly. The Muir are preparing their next move. The research summit is approaching. They will attempt something during that window. Then we stop them together." "Kael." He said her name without the title, just her name. It sounded like a different word in his voice, specific, weighted with care. "I cannot allow you to become a target more than you already are. That is the opposite of everything I've been working toward." She stepped closer to him, close enough to see the lines that had settled beside his eyes over years of this kind of work, the silver threads beginning at his temple, the precise and total weight of what he had chosen. "You cannot guard everything forever," she said. "Even humans have a limit to what they can carry without it breaking them." "I know." His voice was almost below the threshold of speech. "But I will carry it until that point comes. That is what I chose. That is what I committed to." Kael felt something move inside her, something that had been sealed for a long time, beginning to open along an unfamiliar edge. "Then let me carry part of it," she said. "Let me choose the same thing. Let me stand next to you instead of always in front of what you're protecting." For a long time, Rhenn did not respond. He studied her face with something that looked like a person who's been in the dark for so long that light is frightening. Then, carefully, slowly, his fingers closed around hers. "All right," he said. It was only one word, but it remade everything. They stood together on the observation ring, looking out at the constant stars. Two beings from different origin, different timelines, different understandings of what a life was for, held by something more durable than any of those differences. The fight was coming. The Muir would move. Pain and danger were ahead of them, not behind. But for the first time in 8 months, neither of them would face any of it alone. The intelligence report reached them 3 days before the summit. Kael was in the research wing reviewing field data. When Soren appeared at her door, her expression stripped of its usual neutrality. Rhenn was beside her. Kael could read the tension in his shoulders now. She had learned him. "They are moving," Soren said. "The Muir have activated a field unit, 16 operatives. They will be in position before the summit. Their target is you, specifically." Kael felt fear rise cleanly in her chest. She let it, and then she set it to the side. She had made her decision. "What options do we have?" she asked. Soren looked at Rhenn. Something passed between them in the space of a breath. "2," Soren said. "Extraction. We move you off the station tonight. Relocate you to a position the Muir's current operation cannot reach. It is a lower risk path. And the other option, we engage them first," Rhenn said. His voice was flat in particular ways she now recognized, not empty, but fully focused. "We locate them before they complete their positioning. We dismantle the operation here." Kael looked at him. "Which do you recommend?" A pause. "Extraction. It is the option that best protects you." "That is not what I asked. Which do you think is right?" A longer pause. When he spoke, his voice had more weight in it. "Relocating only moves the problem. The Muir are patient. They can wait across years, across decades, for the right opening. If we run now, you'll spend everything that follows checking every room before you enter it." He met her eyes. "If we take the engagement now, we can destroy this particular operation and establish that you are not a viable acquisition target. But people will be hurt, possibly badly, possibly including you." "Including you," Kael said. He did not contest it. Kael looked at Soren. "I want to engage." Soren blinked. It was the first time Kael had seen her surprised. Researcher Kael, with respect, you have no field training. You have no tactical background. In direct engagement, you would be a complication. I am not proposing direct engagement. Something was building in Kael, a form of focus she had never used in this way before. I am a field researcher with documented range reading capability. I can perceive energy fields at distance. I can locate their operatives before they reach activation positions. I can tell you exactly where each one is positioned and what their current behavioral pattern indicates. Rhenn stepped forward. No. His voice was immediate and firm. Using your perception offensively like that carries risk. If any of their operatives have energy detection countermeasures, and your field units often carry them, they will know we have identified them. They will accelerate, or they will make you the first target instead of the final one. I am already the final target. Kael, just her name. That single word with all its weight. I cannot accept you placing yourself in front of this. I have spent 8 months working specifically to prevent that. She moved closer to him. They stood very close now, close enough that she could see what lived in his eyes, the worry that he could not fully suppress, the fear that all his careful work might end here, because she had decided to be present in her own survival. I know what you have given, she said. I know what it has cost you. I am grateful for it in ways I cannot adequately express. But this is my life, my choice. You showed me what it means to choose what matters more than your own safety. She reached up and placed her hand against his face. His skin was warm under her palm. I am choosing to stand next to you, not behind you. Rhenn closed his eyes. For a moment, he looked like someone at the edge of something irreversible, deciding whether to step forward. Then he opened them. He nodded. Together, then, he said, you locate them. I handle the physical threat. We operate as a team. You do not move from the coordination position. No isolation. No independent action. Agreed. Soren looked between them with an expression that had evolved from surprise to something closer to assessment. I will coordinate with station security and establish protected working space. My quarters, Kael said. They have the best environmental shielding on this section. Soren paused almost imperceptibly. I'll arrange it. She left to make preparations. Kael and Rhenn were alone. There is something I need to tell you, Kael said. The words had been building pressure for days. She could not hold them any longer. During the detonation at the Convergence event, when you cover me, I lost control of my perception entirely. I read your field. She watched his face for what she expected. The hardening, the withdrawal, the particular kind of hurt that came from violation discovered. What she found was simply stillness. I know, he said. She stared at him. You knew. Your behavior changed immediately after that night. The way you looked at me, the questions you began asking. I knew something had shifted. He moved his shoulders slightly, not quite a shrug. I assumed. And you were not. Why are you not angry? What would there be to be angry about? I have nothing I would conceal from you. Everything I have done, I would do the same way again. That quiet, real smile appeared again. If anything, I feel less alone now that you know. I have been carrying all of it in a direction you couldn't see. It seems right that you can see it now. Kael felt tears coming back. She no longer tried to stop them. I was certain you would not forgive it. I don't experience it as something requiring forgiveness. I have spent 8 months becoming someone who knows you very well. His voice was careful and honest. It seems only fair that you know me too. She made a sound that was half laughter and half something else entirely. We are a very strange pair. The galaxy produces strange combinations, he said. Sometimes they function better than expected. The 2 days that followed were the most intensely focused of Kael's life. She spent long sessions in deep perceptual extension, reaching her awareness across the station, scanning for energy fields that carried the particular compressed, directed quality of operatives in tactical positioning. She found them, 16 individuals distributed throughout Drivo's station, disguised as vendors, technicians, researchers, transit workers, each carrying concealed tools, each waiting for the signal that would activate the operation. She relayed their positions to Rhenn. He passed the information to Soren. Station security moved into position with the patience and precision of something inevitable. On the night before the summit, they closed. Kael tracked everything through her extended perception as Rhenn led a coordinated team through the station's lower section. She felt his field moving, that particular quality of calm, total focus that she now recognized as specifically his. She guided him, warned him when someone was positioned around a turn before he reached it, told him when a route had been sealed off. Her perception which she had spent years managing as a complication, became something else entirely. Not a burden, not a gift, but a capability in service of something that mattered. One by one, the positions went quiet. By the early hours, all 16 operatives were accounted for. The Muir Field unit was dismantled. The threat that had been moving toward Kael for over a year was over. She found Rhenn in the medical bay. He had taken several injuries during the operation. Nothing that would end him, but significant enough to require proper attention. He was sitting on a treatment surface while a medic worked on cuts along his forearms and shoulder. "You navigated us through that," he said when she entered. "Your guidance reserved the outcome, including for me." "We navigated together," she said. As agreed, she sat beside him, like you said we would. He looked at her. In his eyes, she saw something that hadn't been there before, or rather, something that had always been there, but was no longer held at the same careful distance. Not just a protector assessing his charge, a partner. "The station coordinator wants to speak with us," he said. "Apparently there are commendations. There's a formal request." "Do you want a commendation?" she asked. He considered this seriously for a moment. Then he laughed. She had heard him laugh only once before. The sound was warm and entirely real, like something that didn't often get out. "No," he said. "I want to continue my current assignment, if that is still acceptable." "It is," Kael said. "Very much." The formal acknowledgement was brief. Coordinator Viral gave a speech about interspecies cooperation and effective threat response. She offered Rhenn whatever recognition he wanted in return. He looked at Kael before answering. "I would like to remain with the Lyrani research team," he said. "If they will have me." Viral looked briefly confused. It was clearly not the answer she had been expecting, but she nodded. "Granted." That evening, Kael and Rhenn stood together on the upper observation ring. The same place where they had first spoken honestly. The same stars burned in the dark beyond the panels. Everything was different now. Kael reached out and took his hand. Through the contact, she opened a very quiet perceptual channel. Not intrusive, not forceful, just a gentle reach between their fields, asking and waiting. She sent one thought. Simple and complete. "Thank you. You are not alone anymore." She felt a surprise arrive. Then his warmth, his relief, and beneath those, something else, something that had been growing for 8 months in the space between them, something without a name yet, but clear and steady and true. He held her hand and sent back his own thought, just as simple, just as complete. "Neither are you." They stood together on the observation ring, watching the stars burn in the darkness. Two people from different origins, different understandings, different timelines, joined by sacrifice and trust, and something neither of them had a word for yet. The galaxy was vast and indifferent and full of danger, but they were facing it together now, and that made all the difference.